All right, gamers, welcome back to the channel for another deep dive.
Back at it again.
And today we're going back to the PS2 era.
Oh yeah, PS2.
We're gonna be checking out the 2002 title Shinobi.
Oh yeah, I love this one.
I'm excited to dive into this one because like ninjas are cool, right?
Ninjas are always cool.
Always cool. But this one's got some stuff that makes it stand out, I think.
Yeah, this is a really interesting take on the ninja genre.
For sure. So we're gonna be looking at what makes this game so special.
All right, let's do it.
From the gameplay to the story and everything in between.
Sounds like a plan.
So to get us started, I think this game is unique in a lot of ways. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is this whole soul-hungry sword thing.
Yeah, the akujiki.
The akujiki.
Right.
It's not just a weapon. It's like a game mechanic.
Yeah.
It's constantly needing to be fed with the souls of your enemies. So you're not just fighting to win. You're fighting to survive.
Yeah, that's a really cool concept. It's like a very literal interpretation of a life-draining weapon, right? Totally adds this whole other layer of intensity to the combat.
Yeah, for sure. So how does that mechanic actually work in the game? Like, do you have a limited amount of time or?
So yeah, you have this like hunger meter for the sword and it's constantly depleting and the only way to replenish it is by killing enemies.
Oh, wow.
So you got to stay on the offensive. You can't just like hang back and wait for the perfect moment. You got to be aggressive. You got to keep that kill streak going.
Yeah, that's wild. So it's like a constant race against time almost.
It is. It really keeps you on edge.
Yeah. I bet that leads to some pretty like heart-pumping moments.
Definitely. You're always under pressure.
So you mentioned the developers Overworks.
Right.
And they're known for a totally different style of game.
Yeah, they did Streets of Rage.
Yeah, which is like a classic beat 'em up.
Total classic side-scrolling beat 'em up action.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see them tackle this like 3D action adventure with a ninja.
Yeah, it's a different beast altogether, but you can definitely see some of that Streets of Rage DNA in the combat.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah.
how? So
Well, the combat is very fast-paced, very fluid. There's a lot of emphasis on combos and juggling enemies.
I see. So like that kind of like in-your-face aggression
Exactly.
that you see in Streets of Rage, they've kind of like translated that to the 3D space.
Yeah, they brought that same energy to Shinobi, but with a ninja twist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking of the combat, what other kind of tools does Hotsuma have at his disposal?
So besides the akujiki, which is obviously the main attraction,
Right.
you also have a pretty cool moveset. You can wall run, you can do these mid-air dashes. There's even like a stealth dash where you can zip past enemies.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
It's all about speed and momentum, keeping the pressure on.
I love that. So you're not just like stuck on the ground. You're using the whole environment to your advantage.
Exactly. The levels are designed to encourage that kind of play style.
That's awesome. So we got this cool sword. We got these like acrobatic moves. But there's also magic attacks, right?
That's right. There's a magic system in the game. It's not super complex, but it adds another layer to the combat.
Oh, for sure.
You have three main types of magic Kaien, which is fire-based Kamatachi, which is like a shockwave attack, and then Reijin, which grants you temporary invincibility.
Oh, so you're like a superpowered ninja.
Basically. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So how do these magic attacks actually like work in the game? Are they like separate from the sword combat, or do they kind of like blend together?
They're more like supplemental attacks. You can use them to clear out groups of enemies or to get yourself out of a tight spot, but they're not like the core of the combat.
Yeah.
The focus is still on the swordplay.
But it's cool that you have these options, right?
Definitely. It gives you more strategic options.
Yeah, awesome. So we've talked about the gameplay, we've talked about like the combat and the different abilities that Hotsuma has, but like, what about the story?
Yeah, so the story in this game is actually pretty interesting. It's a lot darker and more mature than you might expect from a ninja game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not just like your typical save the princess kind of story. There's a lot of tragedy and betrayal.
Ooh, I like that. Give me some drama.
So the basic setup is that Hotsuma is the leader of the Oboro clan, which is like this ancient lineage of ninjas.
Okay.
But to become the leader, he had to kill his own brother in a duel.
Whoa, that's heavy.
Yeah, it's a pretty messed up backstory. And then things get even worse when a massive earthquake hits Tokyo and unleashes this ancient evil sorcerer named Haruko.
Okay, so we got earthquakes, we got evil sorcerers.
It's a whole thing.
Sounds intense.
It is. And it's up to Hotsuma to stop Haruko and save the world.
Of course. So why do you think the developers decided to go with this like darker, more mature tone for the story?
I think they wanted to set this game apart from other ninja games. They wanted to show that ninjas could be more than just like mindless killing machines, that they could have depth and emotion.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like they're trying to tell a more grounded and realistic story within this like fantastical world.
Right, they're exploring the human side of the ninja.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a really cool approach.
It definitely makes for a more memorable experience.
For sure.
You're not going to forget this story anytime soon.
So we've talked about like the kind of like surface level of the story, but like what are some of the like themes or like the deeper meanings that you think the developers are trying to explore here?
Well, one of the big themes is definitely duty versus family.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Hotsuma is torn between his loyalty to his clan and his love for his brother, and that conflict drives a lot of the story. There's also this idea of redemption. Hotsuma is trying to atone for his past sins and find some kind of peace.
It sounds like there's a lot going on beneath the surface of this game.
There is. It's a lot more than just a mindless action game.
Awesome. Well, I'm even more excited to dive into this now that we've kind of like scratched the surface of the story and the characters and everything.
This is going to be fun.
All right, so let's take a closer look at the world of Shinobi and see what kind of challenges they have.
Let's do it.
All right, gamers.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
It's going to be a wild ride. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to keep talking about Shinobi for the PS2.
Yeah, picking up where we left off talking about the story and how it was kind of like a darker take on the ninja genre than maybe some people were expecting.
Yeah, it definitely had a different vibe.
For sure.
Yeah.
And from what we're seeing in the gameplay footage, like the world itself kind of matches that darker tone, right?
Yeah, the environments are definitely striking.
Yeah.
There's this really cool blend of traditional Japanese architecture with like these almost futuristic cyberpunk elements.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like feudal Japan meets like Blade Runner almost.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even though it's a PS2 game, the visuals hold up surprisingly well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, the character models are detailed, the environments are atmospheric.
Yeah.
I think they really pushed the PS2 hardware to its limits with this one.
For sure.
But beyond just looking cool, do you think there's any like deeper meaning behind the art style?
I think there is. There's this constant play with light and shadow throughout the game.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
You see it in the environments, the character designs, even the way the combat unfolds.
Yeah.
It's almost like the visuals themselves are telling part of the story.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it adds another layer of depth.
So we've talked about the visuals, but what about the music?
Yeah.
When I think of ninja games, I always think of that classic like synth-heavy, almost mystical kind of sound.
Here.
What kind of vibe does Shinobi's soundtrack go for?
Well, it definitely leans into those traditional Japanese influences.
Okay.
But with a modern twist, you hear traditional instruments blended with like hard-hitting rock and electronic beats.
Oh, nice. So it's like a fusion of like old and new.
Yeah, it creates this dark, intense atmosphere that really fits the game.
I bet it pumps you up during those boss battles.
Oh yeah, the boss themes are epic.
Speaking of boss battles,
Yeah.
I heard some stories about this game's difficulty. Is it as brutal as they say?
Well, let's just say Shinobi is not for the faint of heart.
Okay.
This is a game that demands precision timing and a deep understanding of the mechanics.
So you really got to be on your game.
You do, but it's also incredibly rewarding to master.
I can respect that. Like a true test of skill.
Exactly.
So challenging gameplay needs a soundtrack that can keep up, right? What are some of the standout tracks that like really elevate the experience?
Oh, there are so many. The boss themes are definitely up there. They're just intense and epic. But the stage themes are also fantastic. They really set the mood, whether it's a haunting melody for a moonlit temple or like a pulse-pounding track for a high-speed chase through the city.
So like the music really kind of like transports you into the world.
It does. It's a big part of the experience.
What are the sound effects?
Well, the sound design is top-notch. Every swing of a kujiki, every impact, every explosion, it all sounds crisp and impactful.
Nice. It's all about those little details.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the soul-hungry sword, and we've talked about the magic attacks. But like, what are some of the other nuances of the combat system that make Shinobi stand out?
One thing that really sets it apart is the emphasis on verticality and momentum.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
You're not just fighting on a flat plane. You're using walls, ceilings, even enemies themselves to launch yourself into the air.
Yeah, it's like ninja parkour.
Exactly. It's all about chaining together these elaborate combos and keeping the pressure on.
It looks so stylish, too, like you're dancing almost.
Yeah, the game has a really cool flow to it.
And the level design seems to encourage that kind of playstyle.
It does. The levels are full of these winding paths, hidden alcoves, vertical structures. It's all about exploration and using the environment to your advantage.
This game just sounds cooler and cooler the more we talk about it.
It is a really unique and interesting game.
But with all this talk about difficulty, is there a learning curve? Like, how accessible is this game for newcomers?
Well, there's definitely a learning curve. The combat system is deep, and the game doesn't hold your hand.
Okay.
But for those willing to put in the effort, the rewards are immense.
So it's a game that respects your time?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but a fair one.
But let's be honest, sometimes even the most hardcore gamers need a break from the intensity. Welcome back to the show, folks. We've been talking all about Shinobi.
Yeah, really digging into this PS2 classic.
And it has been quite a ride. We've talked about the soul-hungry sword.
Oh yeah, the Kuchiki, always gotta keep it fed.
Yeah, the intense comment.
So much style in this game.
The crazy levels.
The wall running everywhere.
Yeah, the dark and twisted story.
It's a wild one.
Yeah. But now I want to talk about, like, the legacy of this game. Like,
Yeah.
where does it fit in the grand scheme of ninja games?
It's an interesting one because, like, it wasn't a massive commercial success,
Right.
but it definitely made an impact.
Yeah.
It showed that you could take this classic franchise, Shinobi's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
and reinvent it for a new generation. Bring that signature intensity into the 3D world.
Yeah. And it did it really well. I think it's aged surprisingly well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you think Shinobi had a direct influence on any other games that came after it?
I definitely think so. You can see echoes of Shinobi in games like Ninja Gaiden and Devil May Cry,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
especially in the emphasis on fast fluid combat, the acrobatic movement, the blend of swordplay and supernatural powers.
Yeah, Shinobi was kind of paving the way for that whole, like, stylish action genre.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
It makes you wonder, like, what if Shinobi had been a huge hit?
Right. What if it had gotten the recognition it deserved?
Would it be, like, up there with those other iconic ninja games?
It's hard to say, but it definitely had the potential.
Yeah, it's a shame it kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah, but that's part of what makes it special too. It's like this hidden gem that only the true ninjas know about.
I like that. So we've talked about the past, but what about the future? Do you think there's a place for a modern Shinobi reboot?
I think it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Imagine those gothic levels rendered in like glorious 4K.
Oh, yeah.
The combat system refined and modernized. Maybe even some online multiplayer modes.
Dude, ninja battles online, that would be insane.
It would be so much fun.
Someone get Sega on the phone.
Let's make it happen.
But in all seriousness, even if a reboot never happens, Shinobi deserves to be remembered as a unique and influential game.
Absolutely. It was a bold experiment.
Yeah.
And it left a lasting mark on the industry.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Shinobi.
Hope you enjoyed the journey.
Yeah, if you're feeling nostalgic or just curious to check this game out for the first time,
Definitely give it a shot.
dust off your PS2 or fire up an emulator and see what you think.
You won't be disappointed.
And hey, if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more retro gaming goodness.
And don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of Shinobi.
Yeah, we love hearing from you guys. And if you're feeling extra generous and want to support the channel even further, you can check out our Patreon page. The link is in the description below.
Every little bit helps.
The Oboro now. You must be strong. Hurry. Take the sword. Take Akujiki. Do not forget. My spirit shall forever be by your side.